So last week we got a chance to sit down and play a few hours of the upcoming team-based destruction-heavy FPS called The Finals. The premise here with this is that you are a contestant in a futuristic show competing for big cash prizes. As a video game, it's all rather straightforward. You'll play in small teams, fighting over objectives on a variety of maps that are just loaded and ready to be destroyed. From what I saw, actually, it seems just about every single building and object in the environment can be blown up and or torn down. What makes that even more impressive is that my performance stayed pretty smooth throughout that entire experience. Outside of that, the game's got environmental hazards with things like explosives, poisons, and this goo stuff. There are loads of different movement options with elevators, zip lines, ladders, launch pads, and the like. And you play as one of 3 class types, each with access to a unique skill set, weapons, and tools, as well as having varying health pools and potentially varying movement speeds, although I'm not certain there. There's also a day-night cycle and weather that affects gameplay, all of these different variables that can come into effect like special events, and the game's got a built-in tournament mode where 16 teams battle to be the last one standing. So we got to play for around 3 hours, first getting the grip on things by playing some quick play before jumping into the tournament mode and playing against a bunch of other creators and press that were at the event. Overall, I would say I actually really enjoyed my time with The Finals. I came away more impressed than I expected, and while it's still way too early to make a call one way or the other, since we only saw parts of the game, I do think there is a solid foundation here. I liked it, I had a good time, so let's talk about The Finals. Before we do though, let me tell you about today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by our longtime sponsor, the Ridge Wallet and Key Case. These things are durable, built to last, and designed to help streamline what you carry. As I've talked about in the past, I've been using my wallet for over a year at this point, and I'm happy with the product. It works as intended, and I've really not felt the need to go back to what I used prior. I like how durable the thing is. It carries everything I need. It's got a slim profile. Pretty good stuff all around. The Ridge Wallet's list of features include the ability to hold up to 12 cards, as well as having room for cash. They're made of durable material and come with a lifetime warranty, as well as a 99-day risk-free trial. It's got RFID blocking technology and is offered in over 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber, burnt titanium, and my personal favorite, the Basecamp Orange. They've also got these key cases that secure 2 to 6 keys, are made of premium metal plates, and have patent pending tension plate system. I've been using it and enjoy it as well. So if you're interested in checking out the Ridge Wallet or Key Case, using code FORCE at any time gets you 10% off any purchase. Head on over to ridge.com/force to learn more. Okay, so what I want to do in this video is walk you through the basics of the game, talk about everything that we saw in our playtime with it, and then also give you some of my general thoughts and impressions, the good, the bad, some suggestions, and what to expect going forward. All right, so the first thing you actually do when you start is you're asked to create a contestant. Now, this lets you not only choose from a few different appearance options, but more importantly, this is where you pick your class and loadout. So there are 3 class types in the game. There is the light build, which is said to attack with speed and precision. They're good for hit and run tactics with specializations that allow for hiding and evasion. These have the smallest health pool. The medium build is all about providing support. They can detect and target opponents along with healing their allies. They have an average health pool. And then the heavy build is all about destruction, able to quickly tear down walls and buildings, and they have got the largest health pool. Now, I do also believe there is some movement variables here. I believe the heavies are the slowest moving. I'm not certain about run speed, but it did look at the very least like slide distance was affected. So every single class will be able to pick from one of 3 specializations. This is basically like a unique weapon or skill. On top of that, you have your choice of a primary weapon and then 3 supporting gadgets. Now, some of this stuff is universal. Others will be tied specifically to your class of choice, and you're able to make loadouts of every one of the 3 classes. You just have to pick which one you want to use at the start of any individual game. Now, I began and primarily stayed playing as the medium class. My default specialization was this healing beam. Kind of think like TF2 or Overwatch healing. You point at an ally, a beam comes out connecting you to them, and then they get a heal over time. The other 2 options for the medium build that I had access to were a Guardian turret, which is what you expect it to be, as well as recon senses for revealing enemy locations. Now, the weapon that I primarily used on my medium build was the AKM, although I also had access to an R357, a pump action shotgun, or a riot shield. And then for gadgets, there were a load of options. I stuck with the frag grenade, a defibrillator for quicker revives, and the jump pad, but there was also grenades and mines available available. There were abilities like night vision. Now, some of these were available right away from the start. Others would have to be unlocked via the game's account progression. There was also some light visual customization with like a few options for body type, face, and hair. Not a lot here, but I don't think a lot is really needed in a competitive team-based FPS. Most of the customization, though, does come from cosmetics. There were slots for pretty much everything you can think of from head to toe. This will be a free-to-play game. It's got a cosmetic cash shop as well as a battle pass. So at this point in the world of gaming, you pretty much know what to expect here when it comes to monetization. You'll be buying lots of skins, or at least they would like you to be buying lots of skins. That would be ideal for them. Now, again, we sat down and we played for roughly 3 hours. We started with quick play. We eventually went to the tournament mode. All of this, though, only consisted of a single game mode. I am assuming there will be additional modes as the game progresses, but let's talk about the one we got to play. This was called Cash Out, and it's pretty simple. 4 teams of 3 players compete to collect currency, and the team with the most cash at the end wins. So here is how a match generally goes. At the very start of a game, you have your team busting through a wall and then appearing at some spot on the map. And first thing you notice is you've got an 8-minute timer at the top, and there are 4 marked locations on your HUD and on the map. There are 2 vaults and 2 cash out spots. So first thing you need to do is go to a vault. You will pick one of the 2 locations, head towards it. Once you're there, interacting with the vault will begin a short timer. Now, once that timer finishes, you are able to pick up the vault, which is worth a set amount of money. In the games that we played, this was worth $7,000. So the vault has to be carried by hand. It can only be carried by a single person, and that person has their weapon replaced. You can drop the vault at any time to begin shooting, but you're basically just ferrying the vault from where it was and taking it to one of the 2 marked cash out spots. Obviously, in transit, there's a good chance you'll get into some fights, so you'll want to drop the vault or try to run away quickly using any of the game's various movement capabilities, the things like the zip lines and the launch pads, climbing ladders, whatever. Now, once you bring the vault to a cash out spot, you just have to walk up to it, and then the vault is deposited, and this begins a long timer. This appears to take somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes total to complete. During that time, anyone can come up and attempt to steal the cash out, swap it to their team basically. To do this, you just have to interact with the vault, and that takes a little bit of time, but if you complete that interaction, then the cash out switches to ownership to your team. Also worth noting is that this stealing doesn't reset the countdown timer, so you can try to come in and steal one of these last minute. Now, whoever has control of the cash out terminal, when the timer ends, they will be the one who earns that money for their team, moving them up the ranks in the leaderboard. And that leaderboard is entirely cash based. The way scoring works is you can get cash a few ways. You will earn a small amount of cash when securing a kill, but a bulk of it will come from things related to the objective. So if you start an objective, it will earn some cash. If you steal a cash out, it will earn some cash, but most of your cash will come from securing those cash outs. As I mentioned, an individual vault is worth 7,000. If you have 2 vaults in a single cash out, that means you can earn up to 14,000 in the first half of the round. Now, after those first 2 vaults, or the first 14,000 has been cashed out, a third and final vault appears, that one worth 18,000. So yes, you're trying to kill enemy players, but that is a very small amount of cash. You get a little bit more cash by interacting with the objectives, stealing the objectives, but you're gonna get the most cash, and what is going to allow you to win is being the team that actually successfully completes those cash outs. Now, all along this process, you are moving through the map, you are fighting other players, and you are probably at some point dying. They handle death a fairly interesting way in this game. Whenever somebody dies, they turn into like a little statuette figurine. Now, one of your teammates can revive you by holding down E for a few seconds, or if they're playing the medium class, they have access to a defibrillator, which allows you to basically instantly revive somebody. What's also interesting, though, is that that figurine can be picked up and moved. So, for example, if you die in the middle of an intense firefight with multiple teams, one of your teammates can grab your figurine, run it around some corner or somewhere that's relatively safe, and then revive you there. I don't think this is the first game to do something like this. I'm pretty sure I've played others that have, but in general, I think that's a fairly interesting mechanic. Besides your teammates reviving you, though, after about 20 to 30 seconds, players can just revive themselves. They can respawn. However, it uses this coin mechanic, which is basically just a limiting number of respawns per game. Now I want to touch on some of the environmental stuff that takes place. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different traversal things, tons of ladders all over the place. There will be elevators bringing you up and down, or even elevators that move across the map. There are various ropes and zip lines. There are launching pads pads, some of which will propel you vertically or horizontally in different directions. Tons and tons of different movement. Not all of this is even baked in, as some of the classes have movement related abilities. I know, for example, me playing the medium class, I could throw down a launch pad, which would shoot my teammates or anyone who walked on it up in the air. I also had access to create a zip line on the fly, which is really cool. In general, the game's got a lot of movement and it all felt pretty good. There are also these per match variables. So yes, the game has individual maps that are set in distinct locations, but then there is an additional layer of variables that can be applied to that. So at the start of every game, you're going to see what time of day it is, which will affect, if it's dusk or dawn, if you're in the middle of the day or at midnight, that's going to change the lighting. And in some cases, things can change with the visibility, like there are weather conditions. So it can be in the middle of the night clear, or it can be midnight foggy, or there could be a rainstorm going on, which not only creates the visual impairment, but also adds an additional layer of audio to it with things like thunder cracks in the distance. There are also additional potential modifiers, so you can have a default version of the map, or the map could be under construction, at which point you'll see a bunch of construction materials and various things, walls open, areas blocked off, new scaffolding that you can climb. Essentially, this just alters the map, opening up new paths and different play spaces and spots to move. There can be moving platforms, in which case one of the cash out spots is going to be located on a platform that floats all around the map instead of being a static cash out terminal. And then there was also one called Duck and Cover. I don't know exactly what this did, although I remember seeing a giant floating duck on the map and hearing something about some extra destruction happening, but I couldn't exactly tell what was happening in the short amount of time that we played. The game's also got an assortment of barrels. These will include exploding barrels, poison barrels, and this goo. This goo in general is a big thing in this game. There are even goo grenades. It essentially can lock down locations. You can shoot this into a doorway, then blocking it up. You can use it as an additional platform to get to higher elevations. Lots of cool potential interactions with this here. Some of these barrels would be located on the ground, so you could shoot them, but you could also pick them up and then kind of propel them forward like a strong toss. Also, there were these crates suspended in the sky that would contain a ton of barrels, and if you shot them, they would rain down and then explode into whatever sort of thing that they were, explosion, poison, or goo. Also, as touched on a few times already, it cannot be overemphasized how big the environmental destruction is in this game. From what I could tell, just about every single structure, every part of the map can be destroyed. Now, this doesn't end up resulting in the whole map just being rubble, as you might assume, primarily because the things that let you destroy walls and floors and all of that are fairly limited. You basically need special explosive weapons or items that are going to actually cause this explosion. You can't just kind of tear down a building by shooting regular bullets into the side of it. It's not going to work. Some classes have more of this than others. Like, for example, the heavy class really specializes in destruction. They've got access to a sledgehammer. They've got tons of different explosives like bombs and RPG. And they also have this ability to do this shoulder charge, which is what it sounds like. You lower the shoulder and you just tear through walls. In my experience, I mostly played the medium class, but in the brief time I did play the heavy class, the shoulder charge would take me through like 2 or 3 walls of a building. Like, you would travel a pretty significant distance, and it seemed pretty darn strong, really. So the environmental destruction is pretty big, as you would assume, because all of the walls, the ceilings, and the floors can be destroyed. It allows you to open up new access points, to open up sight lines, to shoot opponents. But also, in a lot of the games that we played during the cash out process, when you're at the terminal and you're waiting those 2 to 3 minutes, people just lob explosions, and this would obviously open up the line of sights, but it could also blow out the floor beneath the terminal, which would cause that terminal to shift locations. So you could be at the top of like a skyscraper, and then if they blew out right underneath it and it was open, it could just drop all the way to the bottom of that building. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, lots of potential here. It was all really impressive, and because of the tech that they're using and the fact that all of this destruction is apparently done server side and not on your computer, that played a large role, as far as I can tell, into how smooth the whole experience was. Like I said earlier, the gameplay, the performance was pretty good in my experience, and that's really impressive for a game with this level of destruction in it. And then lastly, the game does have this event system where in the final minute and 30 seconds of the 8-minute matches, some sort of an event will take place. Now, the ones that we saw included mega damage, in which the damage players dealt is increased. There was low gravity. You can jump really high and projectiles travel further. There was deathmatch, but not deathmatch like traditional deathmatch that you assume. This just meant that you earned extra cash for performing player kills. There's the one called the Dead Go Boom, which causes kills to to cause the players to explode. And then also in the final match of the tournament we played, because we made it all the way to the end, they had what appears to be a very special event called meteor showers, which is exactly what it sounds. Meteors would rain down from the sky. Couple that with the destruction in this game, hilarity ensued. Just like things crumbling all around us. It was pretty cool. So yeah, you go out, you do your stuff, you do the objectives, you get kills, you try to get the most cash. The team with the most cash at the end of all of this wins the game. Now, when the match is over, you get a little recap of your team. It'll show like the kills, assists, deaths, revives, and objective completions for everyone. And then there was also what appeared to be some account-wide progression with experience unlocking weapons, gadgets, and various cosmetics. So that's a recap of the basics of the game. I want to touch on some of our early impressions so far. Starting with the good, generally speaking, I thought the gunplay and movement both felt great. Weapons sound good and feel impactful to shoot. I like the ones that I tried personally. And I think the movement overall felt pretty fluid, especially with all of the various movement items in the game, those zip lines, the launch pads. Constantly felt like I was able to get to where I wanted to go pretty quickly and had actually multiple avenues of potentially getting there. We had 2 maps in the test that we played. Both of them were pretty interesting. They felt actually both complex and big while also feeling relatively small. Because these are 12-person lobbies, you don't need the maps to be too huge, but thanks to the verticality coupled with all of the movement and the destruction, it just like every time we played a game, even when it was on the same map, it felt unique and different because of all of those variables. I like the class system with every single build, light, medium, and heavy, having their own weapons, abilities, and varied health pools. I think that adds a nice extra layer of strategy. My team played with 1 light player and 2 mediums most of the time. Gotta say, having double heal guns on your team seemed pretty darn strong. I don't know if like triple medium is even going to be the meta potentially. I think they're definitely going to have to work on balancing, which I'll talk about in 1 second. I love the visuals. Honestly, it looks fantastic from top to bottom. Everything about this game, the textures, the lighting, the effects, the animations, it all looked great, and it all also performed great, which was fantastic. I think I had a couple of hiccups in the first match, although I think that might have been server side, but after that first match, things were smooth the entire 3-hour play session. It was all great. Looks good, plays well, feels good. Good stuff all around. And lastly, in the positives is just the destruction system. I mean, it's cool to have a game where you can blow up walls and crumble buildings potentially. That stuff is kind of fun. I've liked it ever since I first played one of those red factions back in the day that had a ton of environmental destruction. It's really cool when games do this well. I think they found a good balance because it definitely, in my experience so far with it, as limited as that may be, it wasn't the case that everything just became rubble, because your ability to destroy buildings is fairly limited to cooldowns, consumables, and particular explosive weapons. The maps and the buildings are big enough that it would take a lot of focus on a particular area. Like, you're blowing out walls and floors, you're not blowing out the entire side of a building, you know what I mean? It's pretty confined, the space in which you're causing the destruction to take place. Now, of course, it's not all roses. There's some critiques that we have, at least early on. Balance seems way off. This is something that hopefully they address. I think in particular, the explosives seemed way too easy to use and one-shot people. That is something that they are going to have to address. And I do actually believe, since our little hands-on session, that they've already tuned back some of the explosive weapons in the game. Air movement was a little bit stiff as well. I think it could use some sort of air strafing, something along the lines of what they do in like Apex Legends or CSGO. But right now, once you are mid-air, you feel kind of on rails, and it would be good if there was just a little bit more potential movement there. The fact that there's only 1 game mode obviously isn't going to cut it. I also think there's a lot of potential flaws with this mode. For example, the fact that the first 2 cash out vaults are 7k each, resulting in a total of 14k potentially earned there. But the third and final vault is worth 18k. It almost seems like in a lot of cases, you could just ignore those first 2 cash outs and focus on securing the final cash out and win the game that way. I think there's a lot of potential for that to get just not particularly exciting and engaging. So I hope we see more game modes. I am assuming that there are going to be more game modes. So a couple of suggestions that I have are things that I would like to potentially see. Some more weapon variety would be good, and even more so, some customization I think would be fun. Like, I cannot see any individual weapon customization, so we're talking like adding red dot sights or extended magazines, muzzles, and suppressors. I think it'd be good if they added stuff like that. Again, the balancing shooting needs to be done. Explosives seemed overtuned. The healing also felt very strong, potentially way too strong. And yes, more game modes, but more specifically, larger scale game modes. You know, right now it looks like games are restricted to 12 players with the cash out mode consisting of 4 teams of 3. Could we go up to 24? Could we go up to 50? Is that too much to ask with the kind of destruction this game is doing? I don't know. We'll have to see if the server side stuff can make up for that. But yes, I would like to see larger modes. I would selfishly like to see a battle royale mode, but I know people are sick of it. They don't even want to hear the word battle royale. But I think a game with this kind of destruction system and battle royale, oh, I think that'd be pretty cool. I personally think that would be pretty cool, but you know, we'll see. Who knows? I don't think I've heard that they intend to do this, so I'm going to assume it's not going to happen. I'm just throwing out wish lists here, you know what I mean? I really enjoyed my time with the game. I am looking forward to playing more and seeing what else it has to offer. How's this all looking? Well, we do know that they're hosting a closed beta really soon, starting on March the 7th, a day after the embargo for this video lifts. Great marketing, guys. Great marketing, good job. This beta will be running for 2 weeks, apparently, and it looks to basically include everything that we saw in the early playtest that I just talked about with you in this video. I think the game is pretty cool. I do want to see much more before forming any sort of real opinion, but I do think there is a lot of potential here. Oh, and also the studio making this game is the same one making one of my more anticipated upcoming games, Arc Raiders. That's like that kind of retro sci-fi looter shooter that's coming out. I think that looks phenomenal, and I'm really hoping that this game does well. If for no other reason, then it would be a good omen for their upcoming game, Arc Raiders, which I like this game. I think this looks cool, and I will gladly play more of it, but I am personally more interested in Arc Raiders. It's more of a, I don't know, it's more of like a boomer-friendly game. And at the ripe old age of 37, I might as well be a boomer in the world of gaming. It's okay. I'm fine with it. Doesn't bother me. I don't mind being old relatively to the average age. What is the average age of gamers? Isn't it like 30 or something? Does any of this matter? How is it relevant to the video? It's not. That's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this early look at the finals. I think it's pretty cool. I enjoy it, and I'm definitely going to play some more. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.